Hello and welcome to hopefully, what will hopefully be a normal week. No Isle of Wight holidays, no days off. It's only Monday. Dare I speak too soon? I don't know. Look at this. This is ivory. Do you know, I've got 4 ivories in here, 2 there, 2 here. Okay, it's in a right state. It's absolutely filthy. I've hooked it all up, turned it up slightly on the Variac, and it works. Yeah, can you believe it? It works. And yet you get another radio. You know, the wiring's all perished on here. It's really in a dreadful state. You get another radio, beautifully clean, immaculate cabinet. You take the chassis out, shining aluminium, beautiful. And it's got a load of problems, you know, half a dozen sort of major faults. So there we are. So all I'm going to do on this one, first of all, is clean it off. Take it outside, give it a good dust. Whenever you do one of these radios, you know the mains filter capacitor on the DAT 90A, it's here on top of the chassis above the volume control. Most radios had a filter capacitor, 0.01 or whatever, across the mains. That's the radio side of the mains on-off switch, not the main side. So it's, you know, so it isn't connected all the time. Before you do anything, before you plug it in, just all I've done, snip it off. Just cut the lead, cut the capacitor off, because you'll probably find it will explode, and you don't really want that going in your face. I mean, normally, to be honest, they just hiss, and the end of the capacitor, it might go just like that. It might pop out. The best thing is to cut it. You don't want it getting hot or exploding. So you cut that off, then turn the mains on and wind the Variac up slowly. But of course, do, you know, as always, do all the usual checks. I mean, underneath it is actually quite clean. They usually are, of course, because all the dust gathers on the top. Also, the tuning, it's graunching and it's tight and it's all dreadful, covered in cobwebs, rusty in places. Don't go turning that up and down. The cord will either break or come off the pulleys because everything's seized and so tight. So just a couple of tips there. You noticed I have these chassis, they're all warped. And very often the cabinets, now that one's, yeah, it's got a little rock on it. Nothing's square. And if you look at the dial, they're always crooked. I don't know why. Perhaps they had crooked eyesight back in the 40s. I'm starting work on this now. Take this old capacitor out first. It's just reminded me, I remember, I think it was Ernie emailed me a while ago, and he said he's on his 5th restoration, so that's 5 radios he's done, and every one of them has worked. Every single one of them has actually worked when he's got it on the bench, turned it on. These were very reliable, you know, these old radios. They really were reliable. There's the culprit. There's that capacitor. The ones that go bang. They don't all go bang. So yeah, it's you know, it's, oh, the light doesn't work. Got to turn the solar power on. Well, connect the light up. So yes, it's you know, it's not always the case that you get your radio on and there's loads of problems with it. I remember Ernie saying that he'd bought his from boot sales, junk shops and wherever, and yes, it was 5 radios that he's done, and every one worked. I mean, you know, they have issues, of course, like this one's got issues. It's you know, it's the volume control's crackly, various things, the tuning's all seized up. Anyway, I shall take this outside with my dusting brushes and go and pollute the atmosphere. I suppose it does pollute, doesn't it? Oh dear, that's a thought. Yes, I mustn't do this near the washing. You know, when the washing's hanging out, don't go and stand next to the washing and brush all this off. I've done that before and I've been in trouble. Be careful with the old dusting brush near the oscillator coil, aerial coils, things like that. I've got the worst of it off. I'm just going to lubricate the tuning capacitor and various bits, the bearings, because I don't want this cord breaking or coming off. So before you start twiddling it, just lubricate everything. If the cord breaks on these DAC9 TAs, as you know, they're a nightmare. I don't know why. They should be quite straightforward, these. There's a little felt pad in here for, oh, it's a lot freer already. A little felt pad on the tuning spindle that's meant to be soaked in oil. And what that does is obviously keeps everything running smoothly. Do the volume control spindle as well. You know, oil that wave change switch shaft where it comes out there. Little drop of oil on that. This is sewing machine oil. What I do on the what am I looking for? Don't know what I'm looking for. I've lost it. There it is. Where this runs along, the cursor runs back and forth. Vaseline's good for that. You don't want to get oil all over that really, because it will still squeak. You know how they squeak as they run along. A bit of Vaseline along there is quite good. Not too much, of course, like I've just done. That's working. Look, already that's freed it up nicely. So yeah, I'm not doing all the capacitors and the rest of it. The radio's working. I shall do those in a minute. I want to get a new mains lead on it. I want to get the tuning mechanism working properly, and get stuff like that sorted out, and then I'll start on the capacitors. Just be a bit careful while this, right, it's still tight. It's loosening up though. You can hear it graunching. The cord actually on here is nice. No little nicks in it. You see sometimes it's a spot on the cord where it's frayed, and you've got to replace the cord. If it's frayed like that, you've got to replace it. It's no good trying to do anything. Well, there's nothing else you can do. The speaker leads are all perished. What I want to do now is run it up and just see where I am exactly. Of course, I've always said do the capacitors first, haven't I? But in this case, the wiring was so bad, the speaker wiring, the tuning seized up. I wanted to get that sorted. Bit of this on your wave change switch and volume control, which I've just done. There's still some, if you listen, that valve bases. Now, which type? They're the porcelain ones. They've got the decent little pins in the bases. So all the valve bases need cleaning. The wave change switch I've cleaned. Have we got long wave?
And aging. So this is on your mind.
Perfect.
You can take part on social media at BBC Women. Authority funding. Then after that, austerity, benefit cuts and sanctions. Great.
There is distortion there. Let's turn it off for a minute. That'll be the capacitor. You know, the coupling capacitor. Got wave switch clean all over the place. Right, so what's next? Check the mains tap, of course, make sure that's on 250, which this one is. I think I've said before, I take the wire off because people, they like to twiddle with things, and I just snip that little fly lead off there. It can always be put back at some stage, you know, it doesn't matter. It's not just, you know, not sort of destroying the radio in any way. And talking of reliability, you know, these radios were reliable in the workshop. Yeah, we had valve radios in the 60s, but mainly it was televisions. These have got, what, 5 valves in? Televisions had anything up to 20. You know, even the old black and white tellies, they had up to 20 valves in, and they were thrashed. Yeah, they were thrashed. I mean, they were on all the time, the tellies. Okay, these radios were on all day, but there wasn't a terrific amount of heat. The TV valves, a lot of them got very, very hot, you know, especially line output, audio output, video output, that sort of thing. They all got very hot, like EL84s, like these UI41, they get very hot. And of course, tellies were going wrong every 5 minutes, but simply because there was so much more to a TV than a radio. You know, in a radio, this is just the audio part of the telly. Obviously, in the telly, you've got all the rest of it. So yeah, these were pretty reliable. You know, radios, any radios were pretty reliable. Right, what's next? The cabinet needs washing and polishing, but I'm going to replace the speaker leads, new mains lead and capacitors. Goodness me, it's now Tuesday. The week's going to disappear.
Fighting spirit to never
Right.
give up, and even your patience
Mains lead,
with us
capacitors, blah blah blah. The original dial glass, his one, it's dreadful. It's in a dreadful state. All the paint was flaking off the back. I found another one. I've got a few of these. Most of them aren't a great deal of good. And as you can see, I put black nail varnish. Just get some black nail varnish, cheap stuff, over the gaps there. And what you can do is just look through. There's a couple more to do when that's dry. And that'll look fine. This is certainly a lot better than his original one. That'll look fine. Bear in mind that what I'm saying about this radio, the tuning, capacitor, oiling, bearings, blah blah blah, valve bases, it's applicable to most radios. Don't just think, oh, here we go, another DAC 90A. That's warped. Look, that's got to be put in water and straightened. Warm soapy water. Soak it for 10 minutes or so. Flat surface, weight on top, and it'll leave it overnight, and it'll come out all right. Which reminds me, I've got to repair his back panel for his DAC 90 there. So yes, it's coming on well. The speaker, that the bellows in there has come away, so that wants holding in place like that. Then the hot glue gun running around there. Again, these speakers were used in a lot of radios, these Celestion speakers, and this happens to, well, I wouldn't say to most of them, but to a lot of them. The bellows there just becomes, the glue gives up eventually, so the cone's all horrible. 9 times out of 10, hold that cone in, glue around there, and that will cure the problem. The speaker will be fine. You get the odd one, of course, where it's no good. So there we are. Working well. I'm just waiting to hear from the chap before I put it back in the cabinet, wherever that is, over there, about the dial light modification. These have two 3.5 volt bulbs at 0.15 amps, 150 milliamps. I do a little mod, fit a 6 volt transformer with a couple of 6 volt bulbs. It's a bit brighter, and there's none of this sort of warming up business. They're on or off. I'm just waiting to hear from him, because he does like his radios. I've done a few for him now. He likes them to be original. Gluing the back panel, as I said, for the DAC 90, I cut a piece out of an old panel there. That panel has had it, and a bit of Araldite or whatever glue. I've just glued it on top, on the back of the panel. There's my anvil. Do you like that? Weighs a ton. Well, not a ton exactly. Stick that on there till that's set. It doesn't look brilliant. I'll show you when it's done, but it's kind of more in keeping. The chap wants it original, as I said. It's more in keeping. I used to try and cut a piece out to fit in, like flush with this, rather than stick it on it, but it was never very secure, and it didn't, I don't know, I think this looks better, although it's stuck on the outside. I think it looks better. Okay, I've got to wait for that to dry, or to cure, or whatever glue does, to set. I'm going to put a little bit more black varnish on this, because I can still see some scratch marks there through it. That's going to look quite nice when it's done. You don't see the black varnish from this side, of course. It just doesn't show the light through the cracks, which is rather good. Okay, let's move on. Look at this, can you believe it? Alan, thank you. EZ80 and an EL84, nice valves. Thank you very much for that, Alan. I'll put those into stock. They were surplus to Alan's requirements. This is the DAC 90A ivory. Let's move that. This is a DAC 90, which I've done. That's the DAC 90A, which I've just finished. And this is another DAC 90A that I'm about to start. So I don't know what's happening. We've gone ivory. Oh, there's some coax. Look at that. Really thick coax, RG213. I've ordered an aerial. Yes, another aerial. It's looks like a television aerial. It's a Yagi, you know, a beam. I think it's about 4 foot long. What's 4 feet? It's about that, isn't it? Yeah. And it's for the 70 centimetre amateur band. Massive coax because it's low loss. So I'm going to aim that down to the West Country, that way. Aim it to the West Country, stick it on a pole, aim it to the West Country. So I'll tell you more about on the amateur radio stuff. Right, I suppose I'd better move these. These are going to be on test. I make a start on this one. Just had an email from John. Hello John, nice to hear from you. Valve bases. Yes, John has pointed out something that I forgot to mention altogether. You know, last week, was it last week or the week before, I was talking about replacing valve bases. John said, with the V-type pins that you get, where I say, you know, one bit breaks off, so you've got the valve pin here like that. John said, take out a pin or a connection from a spare valve base, and there are usually a few around, where are we, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 4 spare ones on the rectifier on this particular one. To carefully remove one, you can do that, bend it straight underneath, get all the solder off, bend it straight underneath, and it should then push up through and come out of the top of the valve base, a pin, and you can replace the actual the connection rather than the whole valve base. I have done that, John, many times, and I forgot to mention it. There we are, old age creeping up on me again, isn't it? The two DAC 90, DAC 90 and DAC 90A belong to the same chap. I put them over there on test, and fortunately a bit of music came up that I quite like, so I turned it up. The speaker's rattling like anything on the DAC 90A. I've had to replace the speaker. Where's the old one gone now? Oh, there it is, look. There we are. I'd already glued the bellows because they were loose there, but this one it rattles like anything. You know, it's on the bass notes. So it was fine earlier. This is the thing, isn't it? Once you start getting things back into use after maybe 30 years of being stuck in someone's shed or attic, initially it's fine. This is the whole point about soak testing. There we are. Luckily, I had a scrap radio with a broken cabinet. So I've taken the chassis out. The cabinet was absolutely smashed underneath. So I've kept all the bits from it, the chassis, and the speaker, fortunately, was okay. So, right, half an hour later, where was I? Oh yes, I was on this DAC 90A, wasn't I? Another one. Right, that's another one done. Another one bites the dust. There we are. That's all right. Didn't put it on video because it's the usual. Turn that off. Couple of valves, capacitors, mains lead, blah blah blah. There we are, and it did work. So nothing exciting about that one. We're coming up to the end of the week. This is incredible. Mind you, I did sneak a couple of hours off this morning. I was out in the garden at 7:30 putting up a beam aerial for 70 centimetre. Looks like a TV aerial about that long. It's for the 70 centimetre amateur band, which is now up on a pole aimed at the Isle of Wight. So I was in the workshop by 8:30, so it's okay. I haven't skived off. That was my own time. Right, what's next? Oh, there's an interesting... Oh, I've got to show you this thing next. Nightmare. There we are. Nightmare. Look at it. Yes. It works, but the volume control doesn't work. Let's turn it off. It's Philips. I mean, look at it. It weighs a ton. The chap's put it on a bit of wood. A massive thing. It's just, you know, anyone says, well, why don't you repair Philips? Well, just look at this. I'll show you a close-up in a minute because it really is horrendous. I said to the chap when he bought it, when he phoned me, he said, I've got a Philips, I know you don't do them. He said, it's just the volume control wants cleaning. He said, I've tried to clean it, but that hasn't done anything. Anyway, he brought it round. He said, well, now the volume control just doesn't work at all. It's full volume all the time. So, oh, there's a wire hanging off there. Goodness me, there's a wire. What's that? Always the way, isn't it? Oh, it only wants the volume control cleaning. Yeah, right. The volume control, I can't. I mean, I've never seen one like it. I can't get one of those. I said to him at the time, if that wants replacing, I can't do it. You've got to make up a plate. It's just too much work. And that one's got 4 connections instead of 3 on the pot. Absolute nightmare. You know I always go on about Philips, but I really do hate them. There's the volume control. The mains on-off switch is on the front there, and the 4 connections for the pot around there. Now there's no central nut. These 2 here, is that what's mounted on? I can't quite see. That's the on-off switch. Disaster. There's a wire here. It doesn't go anywhere. It looks like it went there on the mains transformer. In fact, it must. I'll have to check. I can't just solder that on and see what happens. 12 bands, long, medium, and 10 shortwave bands. Look at that, 10 shortwave bands. Can you believe it? This is the bit that gets me. The wave change switch. Can you see down there? Look. It's a rack and pinion. Look. Rack and pinion down there. Look, there's another. Hang on, you can't see the other one. There's another gear there. I mean, rack and pinion. It's ridiculous. That's what you've got on your car steering. Yeah, rack and pinion. That's what you have on mountain railways, not on your radio. These 2, these are Bowden cables. You know, like the old bike brakes are Bowden cables on your bike. And here, look, these 2 yellow, they're sleeves, they're Bowden cables. There's the inner coming out round that pulley. Dread to think if that lot goes wrong. Oh dear, an absolute nightmare. Looks like push-pull output. There's a couple of big fat valves there. It's probably quite a nice radio, but it's just when it goes wrong. Typical Philips. Everyone uses a standard 2-pin thing. Oh no, they have to have thin ones, look, so nothing else will fit. Only the Philips plug will fit that. So there we are. I really don't know what to do with it. The rectifier valve's up in the air, up there. That's the magic eye over there. As for alignment, look at this lot, and there's a load of beehive trimmers over the back. Well, it would be 12 bands. So I don't know what to do. The chap brought it up from Portsmouth. I thought it was just cleaning the volume control, but it looks like the control wants replacing. It's it's not something I want to get involved with. As I say, the pot's got 4 connections, so I've got nothing like that. So there we are. These are smoothing capacitors up here on top. Yes, I really don't know what to do. I will just make sure it is the pot and not something else that has happened to make the volume flat out all the time. I'll do that, and I'll try and sort this wire out. Why is that? I don't know. And I think, well, I'll just probably give it back to the chap. I did say I don't do Philips. He says, I know you don't do Philips. I saw it on your website, blah, blah, blah. And like a fool, I never learn, like a fool. Oh, well, okay, I'll have a quick look for you. Okay, it's Friday already. You've got sunshine, so I might do some more aerial work. You're probably thinking I'm always doing aerial work. I am. Always putting up aerials of some description or other. This has just come in. BC 5445 GEC. There we are. Quite a nice radio. It's got very busy all of a sudden. I'm inundated. Got this damn Philips thing in the way. I must get that out of it because I can't operate like this. I like, as I've said before, I like to come in on a Monday morning to a clear bench. Mind you, next Monday, bank holiday. Again, how many bank holiday weekends do we get? I shall be in the workshop anyway. I've got too much to do to start having days off. I think after the week off I had last week, everyone's thought, right, now he's back, let's all bring our radios round. There we are. Robert, welcome to you. Just squeeze you in the end of this week, a new member, Robert. Hope you enjoy the videos. Welcome aboard. Yesterday, well, and today, it's still going on now. It's 24 hours now. A massive website outage. The website's been down for 24 hours. Started Thursday morning. It's now Friday. It's still off. It's 24 hours. There's a major server problem which is being sorted. I hope it's done for Monday because I won't be able to get this video on the website, obviously. I've got a load of stuff I want to add to the website because I can't do a thing now because of that. Had a power cut the other night. Why are they called power outages? Why is everything an outage now? Used to be a power cut. you know, or the website's gone down. You know, now everything's an outage. Anyway, we had a power cut the other night. Of course, I've got 2 computers that are running all the time, doing various things. So they both went off. Yeah, I've got a UPS, you know, the power supply thing. I don't use it. We so rarely have power cuts, it's not worth it. Of course, all my clocks, everything's flashing. When I came down in the morning, what's going on here? There we are. So we had a power cut, not a power outage. Right, I'm waffling now, I'm boring you all that spec, so I shall disappear. And I just hope that the website's back on. Well, it will be by the time you see this on Monday. If you're not seeing this on Monday, it's not back on. So there we are. Have a good week, and I'll see you next Monday. Bye-bye for now.